So are we on? Are we live now? What did we do wrong?
You have to push the camera button.
Okay.
I
Now the
didn't bring,
camera button is red, and
Oh, well.
it's, and the
I just can't
iPad's
use
flashing red,
Sorry.
and that's, means we're
Okay.
recording.
Sarah, did it come in? I don't have I just realized I didn't bring my
Correct.
hotspot.
You don't need it. Can you go to Opera House? Just go to your
Oh.
choices for your internet.
Yeah.
And it says Opera House, open.
Is there Opera House open? No, I don't want to connect automatically, but I do want to connect. Okay.
I got my speaker on.
Okay,
So we're
we're gonna get there. I should have done all this before I.
That's what I said. I'm sorry.
Part of my itching, and I got ground zap.
Duct tape. Have you tried it? Works well. I had it for the first time yesterday and just put the duct tape on it, and it ameliorated the symptoms quite a bit.
Welcome to the Energy and Sustainability Committee meeting of Monday, June 17th, 2019. We have a quorum, so we can move ahead. The first question we usually address is whether July 15th works for everybody to come to the next meeting.
I believe so.
Very good. So, that's great.
I'm sorry, July what?
July 15th, it's on the agenda as the next ENCOM meeting there. Okay. All right. So, did you have an opportunity to review the minutes of April 22nd and May 20th? Because we skipped the April 22nd minutes at the last meeting.
The 22nd I thought looked fine. I have not read the 20th.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else has.
Is anybody, May 20th?
May 20th.
Shall we,
If someone else has done due diligence, I'm happy to.
I think Pete
I did
sent
it.
back and said it was
Great.
fine.
I make a motion that we accept the 22nd and the April
Okay,
22nd and May 20th.
second the motion. Pete, you want to second that
Sure.
one? All right.
All in favor?
Yay, thank
Aye.
you.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously.
Well done, Brian. Does anybody have any non-agenda items they'd like to address today? Did you have a chance to look at the agenda there and see what we're going to cover? I did think of something that is not pressing, but I'm curious about whether it might be of interest to the Energy Committee in the future. And it came to mind as I was riding my bike today. It has to do with lawn mowing by the town and the energy used in mowing lawns, in particular cemeteries, which is an ongoing project every year. A number of years ago, I sat in on a cemetery committee meeting recommending that the Oak Hill Cemetery addition be laid out in such a way that mowing would be very straightforward and there would be no weed whacking necessary. And I showed them pictures of a cemetery I had seen like that, that was very effective. They just had the stones lined up, they had gravel, and then an edging, and then
What's the cemetery called?
Oak Hill, isn't it? Oak.
Which one is
It's
open?
on
It's the one up on, Mechanic. It
Okay.
has
Way to snowball.
it has the one grave on the right-hand side as you're going up. Maybe two.
So I thought that one was going to be a ground level, but apparently not. They've got stones going up on that side.
And they gravel up to the stones so that you don't have to add.
What I had seen in another cemetery was planning ahead that had the gravestones lined up and gravel around them, and then an edging, and then grass was a straight mow, there and back, between the next row of gravestones. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so instead of getting in there and weed whacking around every single stone and all those issues related to heavy-duty time requirements and fuel requirements, they had planned it in such a way that the mowing, although necessary, was minimized and simplified, and the time also. So I didn't know whether that was something that was of any interest. It seems it's kind of out there on left field with regard to energy use by the town, but
Well,
it's-
the way I would think about that is that as we go forward with year 3 of the compact of mayors, and virtually every department will have to minimize their fossil fuel use by 5% or more per year, these kind of decisions are going to be forced upon the departments. So I
I
would,
mean to
I would,
open the whole
yeah,
discussion.
I
but
would
I-
hesitate.
Personally, I would vote for, some other methodology of limiting it rather than turning cemeteries into grid systems that are kind of.
So we don't have to pursue the actual nitty-gritty discussion. Really, what I wanted to know is whether it's an issue that the Energy Committee would like to address sometime when we have a little time on our hands.
Well, I have to say, I would also, number 2 point, strongly argue that we not add other diversions when we have no mention anywhere except for charging stations of transportation in the town. Nothing about walking, nothing about bicycling, and nothing about trying to minimize, car travel within the town. I think that should be our next big thing, since that's
I tend to agree.
majority of energy use in the world, at least.
Well, in the town, the majority of our town's energy use is buildings.
Well,
Okay,
if you're
well, let's
Fossil fuel use.
shelve
Yeah,
that,
I see.
let's shelve that. But I just thought I'd throw it out there because it was just a
Well,
thought
yeah,
that came
just-
to mind.
Just so you know, I just looked this up. Apparently, a lawnmower, one gas lawnmower emits as much pollutants in an hour as, it's the same carbon footprint as driving 100 miles in a car.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So
there
it's-
are battery operated,
Right.
weed whackers, they're battery operated.
Right, I think this is where I think we don't want to get into the details of how departments are going to minimize their,
That out.
and we can provide support to departments as to how they would go about minimizing their fossil fuel
The
footprint.
interesting thing is my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, is that cemetery is a whole different, its own independent line in the town budget.
$105,000.
It's run, and that is run and managed, I thought, by the cemetery committee, with the snowball personnel being redirected to lawn mowing in the summer by the town.
That's right.
So it might be managed by recreation. So anyway, it's kind of, in a way, it falls between the cracks in terms of who makes these monetary decisions. It falls to the cemetery committee.
Again,
It's good that we can, if I may, I think that we don't need to determine how each department gets there. We want to be taking a much more global view of it. Let's make sure that we all have our eyes on this big prize, and each department will know, will find out how, and if they want to look for ideas, then they can seek us out and say, hey, we'd love to do this. Does anybody know this? And we
Yeah,
can
I agree.
Google things and say, hey, here's a way to do it.
Okay.
Here's something, here's the pro or the con of X or Y or Z
Okay.
option.
Good input, thank you. The first thing I had on the agenda was actually to think about, we can have 10 members as it was originally set up, and we presently have 8 members, including Marina, and so I wanted to let you know that and see if you're.
I've got a couple of candidates.
Want to address, solicit some members, like we.
So I
Carr
talked
do
to,
with the solar
I
thing?
talked to Pearl Benjamin about replacing Alex,
Oh, you did?
and she's
Pearl's a
interested.
junior?
Junior.
Yeah.
So
great.
she is interested.
Does she live in town by chance?
She does.
Okay, great.
So,
Does that, I know there was potential to get Alex as an intern.
yeah,
Is that not happening? or
I don't know about
would it
that, but
count
I think that
against,
it's
or-
probably unrealistic to expect Alex to
I can
be,
address that question
yeah.
in a bit.
I think it'll be unrealistic for Alex to participate on, on a monthly basis.
Going to college?
Colby.
Oh, it's not far, yeah. Well,
But
it
I
is-
think Pearl would be a fabulous,
Yeah.
and
So-
also Phil Gerard. I've been talking to Phil about it, and he said, "What do I do?" And I said, "You need to do it." So
That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be great?
yeah,
What a
because you want to talk about a researcher. That guy will research until the cows come home.
Those are two wonderful people, so thank you, if you would.
I'll follow
Is
up.
that on your plate for both of them?
I will follow up on both of those.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was Pearl's last name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin, spelled like you'd expect.
Yes.
And Phil, Gerard?
Yes.
Well done.
But
So, thank you, that's great. Oh, very exciting. So Alex graduated.
yes.
Congratulations to him, he's going off to Colby. And I wanted to ask him, if he were going to be here, whether he intended to come to the meetings during the summer. Do you
I don't know.
Okay. We did sort of float the idea of internship, but I had a chat with Alex and with Janet and also with the board. And the bottom line with regard to internships, first of all, they're generally funded by grants that the board feels like they need to get a handle on internships and get a process going, that they have had one for the Conservation Commission, and they feel like they really need to kind of come up with a process. And then the third thing is that it turns out we didn't really have something that made sense anyway, even if they had money to pay an intern for this summer. So that didn't end up being something that was realistic for this summer, either in list of things to do or in things working out from the town point of view.
So if we were interested in next year, we would come up with a discrete assignment and then mark it.
I think
That to the
if
board,
we
is that-
want an intern, we'd need to know what we want an intern for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it would have to get published through channels, and the trend in college is for these New England colleges to provide their students with funding for non-paid internships. So if the town were to, once the town has a structure in place, any committee, I think the intent is for any committee to publish the internship around, and then for students, interested students, to go to their universities and say, hey, I would like to get my internship money to go do this unpaid internship. And that would be the way that it would be beneficial for both the student and the town.
And I remember that as a student. We actually had to have a summer internship, but they weren't paid. There's a whole list of things you could do. I got the one that was paid $15 a day, so it was pretty awesome. Great. So, energy info flyer. Once again, one of the I sent around the responses that Bob Falcione, Jeremy sent to my various questions, and that was one of them. And one of the things that Jeremy, our town planner, said with regard to putting an informational flyer into tax bills is that, maybe other committees would like to do that. Oh dear, now we need to come
Right.
up with the process. And I
I
d-
took him to be saying more like, probably this isn't going to work because other committees.
That's the way I read it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even read it that way. That must be my optimism. I read it as, I'm going to be talking to Carrie Leichman about this.
I read it as, you've already put a lot on our plate. This is yet another thing that it would be on our plate, and that we would have to, this is yet another town-wide policy that we would have to come up with some sort of
So,
policy to say what goes in, what doesn't go in, and that is another resource a tax on the resources that are already overtaxed, and that just sort of reading between the lines and listening to Audra and Jeremy about many different things in the town, the ad hoc nature of how the town has often dealt with these sort of things, as they come up, they're really trying to put into place some sort of a town-wide policy, but that requires resources to write those policies. And I understand that they're hesitant to say, oh yeah, sure, you can do it, but because then, oh, what about the Conservation Committee? What about the this? What about the that? And so we're coming across this in other areas, like the Central Street closure is now up for overturning, and their whole thing is, if we do it for one, we have to do it for, we can't be doing these onesies, twosies, we have to have some.
Is
So-
that really a fair, do we need to accept that as, I mean, I
Yeah.
read it a
I
little
would
bit
like-
like that.
I'm putting it out there, I'm not saying we have to accept it.
To read what he said is only 2
Yeah.
sentences.
Yeah.
And let's just review what he said and think about how we'd like to respond. The question was, I was asking him about timing and procedure for putting energy information into a flyer for inclusion in tax bills. We submit a final draft to whom, by when, who prints it, who pays for it, who inserts it. So his response was, I will be working with Carrie Lightman, who is our assessor,
Right.
to provide a cost estimate to insert with tax bills. I assume that means for inserting it with the tax bills. I am curious, though, about what happens when other committees want to do the same thing. We may want to look at other means to get information out to the broader community. There's lots of good and important work being done throughout town departments and committees. We should really try to look at how we share all this information. So if I may weigh in on my thoughts about that, maybe as chair I'm not supposed to weigh in first, but
It's okay.
okay, all in favor.
You've got the floor.
is that, first of all, the town is working with a consultant to build a better town website. And I believe that the town website is going to be more interactive and hopefully more informational and just more and better. And in terms of getting information out to the public, I'm hoping and expecting that the town website would be one, hopefully much better vehicle than it has been with regard to getting information out. The second thought I had was that while it is important to get a process, do you think that's too noisy? While it's important to get a process in place, the fire was lit under me by the Global Covenant of Mayors commitment to try to move quickly. And I'm just wondering if we could approach Jeremy and Carrie and the town manager and say, this would be great if you can get a process going, but would you be willing to do this time? And because we are trying to get some
I think that
Some
we could
momentum behind
yeah,
the
we could.
energy issues.
I think what we could argue is that because we're about to start on year 3 of the Global Covenant of Mayors process, and this is going to be a binding, goals once we make them for ourselves, that it probably is important to inform as many people as possible to the fact that this is what's coming, that there will be self-imposed binding goals that involve energy use in the town, and that the more the townspeople know about this process, the the more streamlined the process will be, the more buy-in we'll have, and
Sooner the-
potentially the more,
sooner the better for the information.
the better and smoother and more robust the goals will be.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I would echo what Pete is saying. I think that given the scope and nature of the crisis that we're facing, the global climate crisis, and the commitment that we've made, it behooves us to publicize that in multiple ways. And I think, the website, that may come later. Maybe we do it maybe there's a, I Live in Camden Facebook group or whatever. But I think this is one way that everybody
No,
owns
only the
in
property
town,
owners, yeah.
everybody who owns property in town will get notice. If they read it or not, who knows? But I think it's an unparalleled opportunity to reach into every home.
Except the rental units.
Right. It's not the rental units, but again, it's as broad a reach as we can possibly have. And I think, given the scope of the problem and the crisis we're facing, it is not necessarily commensurate with something that the cemetery committee or the conservation committee or
Right.
somebody is doing. This is a global, townwide, every occupant, every homeowner, every employee, it's everything and everybody.
Yeah.
So I think there's,
So,
Yeah, so that's how you differentiate between committees.
and I think going forward, it makes sense. I think Jeremy's piece, I would feel the same way. If I was in Audra's shoes, I wouldn't want every,
right.
sort of,
I think that then you can say, she could say, yeah, you know what, this is a special
right.
event, and therefore we're prioritizing it, and it's not something that we would do on a regular basis.
Right, and they can figure out rules and regs, going forward. And this may be a one-shot deal that we've
Right,
got to do
right.
this.
And I would take
Bruce?
advantage of this as an opportunity to sort of elevate it another, I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot on this topic going on all over the state. People would want to know that Camden's playing
Camden
and
doing?
leading and moving with everyone else in some coordinated way. And, if you look at that, I think somebody sent a video or flyer out on the Maine votes yes to something or other recently. And a
was
lot of
about
those things
plastic
are
bags.
things that Camden's been doing. And
Yeah.
so it's one thing if you get a flyer, from your electric company and it's like, oh, this is what we're doing. But it's another thing if you get a flyer and it shows that we're part of a big statewide, national-wide, global-wide initiative to
And I think
address a crisis.
I think that I'm optimistic that both Jeremy and Audra are very strongly behind our efforts with the Covenant of Mayors.
Right.
And the topic came up several times at town meeting. And so I think this is an opportunity for them to say, and, honestly, I don't think it should be we can write it, we can draft it, we can do whatever we want, but really what it should be is the town, the official, it's a communication from the town from Audra, really, to say, and the select board to say, heads up, people, this is a big priority for us. We're pretty much ordering our business this way, and it's coming. You'll hear more and more about it, and it's going to lead to massive changes in the way we do business.
Sarah, did you have any comment you wanted to make?
Well, I'd be happy to support continuing to push to get, it's on. I'd be happy to push to continue to try to do this. I do like the idea of it being a communication from the town rather than from the Energy Committee. And in that sense, I think it would need,
So we
it's
could-
drafted as, in effect, a communication from the Energy Committee with a description of what the Energy Committee's pushed, what it's for, et cetera. And I think that would require kind of reworking. I also think if we're going to push for this, we should agree in advance to make it one page
Yeah, a one-page statement.
and not tiny little type.
And I think that from the town, not the Energy Committee. I think that's really
Town
important.
communique regarding how we're addressing global climate crisis and our commitment
Yes.
to the Global Covenant of Mayors.
Just so that everybody in the town knows, oh, we're signed on to that? Oh, good.
I wondered how much, I know the timing is important on all this, but I think that the residents would appreciate as much information about what the town's doing to make upgrades to their own residents.
Right,
And I
and-
know that's not the town, it's not the mission of this group, right? But there's a little blurb in there.
That was also something that I asked Jeremy, and the
Yeah, it's
answer
kinda
was, program development is in its planning phase. I will brief the Energy Committee and seek your help when the time comes. So it may not there may not be a policy in place before the
Yeah.
flyer.
Street initiatives, I thought I saw there were funds that
Yes,
people might
yes,
take
there are.
advantage
There's
of.
efficiency main
It's right, so we can
There's
certainly point to those.
loans, there's things. I think we can, part of the communique can be, here are some resources that you can use so that
Right.
you individually can be doing things in
So-
lockstep with the municipality's efforts.
So it'd be
Because
good
overall-
to,
Great.
I believe I sent out to you, correct me if I'm wrong, the sort of the draft as it was a while back, and how shall we proceed with,
Well, I think we should proceed, first of all, we should get Audra's buy-in and okay, go ahead. And I think that we can do that if we say this shouldn't be, the Energy Committee's happy to do the work of drafting it, but it needs to come from you. And if you're willing to do that, then we're willing to do the work to make it happen.
my concern is that this is June, and we'd have to have a final probably by August. We don't have a lot of time to put together something if she says, even if she gives us the okay. I don't
Well, we
know
could put
whether-
something together and say, how about it?
So,
And it doesn't, I think,
Let me ask you a question. Is this just, it's almost, is this Audra's decision or is this the select board decision?
Good question.
I
Unknown.
think ultimately, the select board can direct Audra to do things, but if there's a financial implication, Audra's got to find money to do it. Now, I don't know, I'm guessing, we mail out 1,500 tax bills, the cost of
the committee can meet and
1,500
just stuff
copies
envelopes.
and stuffing them in, maybe it's a few $100s
Yeah.
of impact. I
Very
don't think it's
small.
enormous, but I think
But I
it's.
think we'd have to have buy-in and support from Audra.
Agreed, and I think it makes sense that this, as you suggest, that this is coming, this is the town announcing to the townspeople that this is what we've signed on for.
Yes.
As a community, and so we want to inform the community, we want the community's help so that we can be successful, and isn't this great? This is an area in which Camden is leading, and in order to continue leading, we're going to need a lot of help.
And that gets around Jeremy's concerns that, oh, God, every committee in the town is going to want to put one of these things in there, because this is not a committee missive, this is a town missive, and I think that's a big difference.
I think that, when the students from the climate change class came before the budget committee, which has 22 members, and mentioned the Global Covenant of Mayors obligation that we signed,
Blank stares.
they said that none of those members of the budget committee were aware of this, that we had signed on to this. And budget committee members are people who have stepped forward to serve their town, so they are, we can
They're pretty involved.
typify them as involved.
And so if they don't know, we've
If they
got a
don't know,
problem.
then nobody knows, really.
It's also good evidence that this is important to
Yeah.
do.
I think it's kind of critical, but it's also critical that it have support at the town administrative level, and B, have support at the select board level.
Okay, so my question next is, given the time frame shrinking really fast, should we approach decision makers with a draft that we're reasonably happy with?
Yeah, I would,
Need some adjustment.
and I had spoken with Jeremy about, some other things along these lines, specifically with, having to do with ordinances. And the response, and I thought it made a lot of sense, was we need to know sort of the bullet points. And, we can craft beyond that, but they need to know what what we think the intent.
They know that because we
Yeah,
gave them a copy.
Right, what the intent ought to be, and, if they want to massage the language or something, that's fine. So I think we don't have to I don't know that we have to deliver an absolutely perfect finished product, but I think it needs to include what are the major points that are critical. It's probably a bunch of links to other things, because we can't explain it all, and we don't want, as you suggest, Sarah, we don't want tiny little type. We want, whatever it is, 6 big bullets, and then,
Okay.
16 links.
So can we not speak in generalizations? Let's speak to the actual draft that you have seen.
I think the actual draft is
say-
too detailed.
You think it's too detailed?
Yes. I think the actual draft should say, hey, heads up, do you know that we're about to enter into the third year of our 3-year process to come up with greenhouse gas reduction goals for Camden that are, we will specify those goals for ourselves, but then we'll hold our own feet to the fire. And here are some ways that you can minimize your fossil fuel footprint. And here are some links to go through. If you have any questions about what the Global Climate of Mayors is, here's the link, and that's about it, honestly.
Now, is there still there's nothing we can say under the global, about any percentages we'll need to cut by any year?
No,
What we can do is
we're not
point
ready
to
for
the,
that
we can
yet.
point to
That's
the
part of the
state,
process.
what we can point to is to the state goals and say, this year, you're going to be, as townspeople, your voice is very important because we're going to make our town goals. We have to
What the
by
state
the end.
goals are.
We do know what the state goals are.
We know what the governor said she wanted to do.
That's
We don't know
that's
if that's for
something.
reals.
Well, it's something. I mean, you could say Governor Mills has stated that she expects Maine to be blah, 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 by blah, 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 and that's a good goal for us to shoot for municipally, but setting those goals are what this year process is going to be all about. And so get involved, make a difference, help us
So-
set the goals.
So,
The draft is too broad. I guess, I think back to what, Anita, you were getting at, is what of this draft is a good framework, or is it,
right.
this is very broad,
yeah.
and wouldn't then.
I think that's
lead to
too
these-
broad.
I mean, my own opinion is that when you have bullets and you have bolding versus not bolding, it helps people get the gist of what you're covering if they don't want to read everything.
Well, this is 780 words, something like that, what came out.
Okay.
And I would have thought we want 300 at the most.
I agree.
250 to 300. And I mean, just presentationally,
Yeah.
that's what you've got. We shouldn't be going on about how we made all these decisions about changing the streetlights. I mean,
No, I think we just really, I think our message needs to be, we're in year 3 of Global Compact of Mayors. Does everybody know what
I really
what that
don't think
means?
people do know
That's
or
what
understand what that is
that's
about.
what the point of this
And
thing is.
that's why
I
there's,
don't either, and that's why I.
that's where
agree
there's a
with
full
Steve.
paragraph explaining it.
Right, well, I think that if we just had the full paragraph and some good graphics, that would be enough. And say, go to the town website for more, here's the link to the town website with all the links to Efficiency Maine, to blah, 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 because nobody is going to look at links on a piece of paper and type them in. That's not going to happen. So I think what we really want to do is just really, honestly, what we want to say is, people, the town has signed on. This is coming. everything is going to basically be subsumed by this. Every town budget, everything, once we make our goals, we're going to have to meet them, and that is going to,
Though, I mean, I have to say, I've been on this committee now for a few months, and I don't really understand. Are we saying into this global covenant of mayors, and I've gone to the website,
Yeah.
looked at what it said. I mean, are we saying just that the town as a municipality has to cut
No.
its energy? We're talking about everything.
Everybody,
Yes.
everybody.
Right. Now, I think that's a point that needs to
Yeah.
be absolutely,
Absolutely.
totally explicit.
Absolutely.
And stated, right like that.
absolutely.
One bullet points, the town's going to have to cut its municipal use. Second bullet point, everybody's going to, that lives here is going to have to cut theirs.
Right.
And, that
Businesses,
goes for,
Right.
Vacation, I mean, we will all be, these groups will all be affected. maybe,
Yeah.
you know, in
businesses,
different ways.
Right.
tourists, everybody, right?
But again, what we will need, and I'm guardedly optimistic that we have it, although maybe there'll be some opposition to like raising this to the like, okay, people, this is priority one for the town government. And I really think that's what it needs to say on that thing is, heads up, people, from now on, everything we do is going to go through this lens.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
That's
what I
all we
think.
need to
So
say.
here's my question.
And then people can go to look to see what that means, and if we
Right.
want to tell them about things that we're pursuing as the committee, we'd say,
Right.
to these ends, the Energy Committee is pursuing a reduction of 60,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions over the next 50 years with a streetlight program, and
So,
this and that. So that-
that's, I hate to say it, but that kind of information doesn't mean anything to me.
So I'm going to support Anita on this. The things that,
Some kind of we need, I don't think it's wrong to have some sort of a hook that is showing
Yeah.
that we're taking this seriously. The
And
municipality is
that's-
working towards it, and
But do it as
everybody.
percentages of something, or something that people
Some
can-
way, so whatever the hook is,
What were you
that
gonna
that we
say?
think is going to get people engaged, because we want this to stimulate them to action.
What were you saying, Bruce?
I guess, I like all of this because I like this topic area, but I think as a taxpayer, the things that are going to make me want to put this flyer on the countertop and then follow up later, or in the day would be the things that save me money and the things that I know I'm going to be held accountable for. And that, not less so that we committed to achieve a goal, although that's important to me and should be
Yeah.
important to them. But most people will probably say, gee, I can save, I can finally get that heat pump, or just some of the things, or I don't know how we frame it. But
So-
if it's not immediately important to the taxpayer, I think the paper's going to get lost somewhere, don't you think? Or,
No, I agree, I would agree.
not that it doesn't serve a purpose in.
Well, here's the,
So we also have to be careful, don't we, that it doesn't read like people look at this and say, what are you telling me, you're going to come into my house and turn off the lights, if I got too many, I mean, what are you saying here?
I think
You know,
what I
you'll
honestly,
get that kind of
honestly,
reaction.
I really don't, I'm not all that concerned about the homeowners per se. What I'm concerned about is, what I would like to see is that the town government prioritize, and this will be a fabulously important symbol that they have, and they're communicating to everybody in the town, the property owners in the town, hey, we are taking this on as the highest priority. Everything we do will be looked through this filter, and it's going to have ramifications for our town and for our region and for our country, and we're proud of the fact that we're number one.
I think,
That to me is really the
Right.
purpose of this.
I think that's
It's
important.
going on record.
Educational message.
It's going on record.
Inspiration.
It's the town going on record as saying, hey, people, we're leading, follow.
okay, I think that's good, but I kind of want to hold firm on including in this flyer information about what the town has been doing, because people don't necessarily know that the streetlights are being switched out. They're going to freak out if they don't know about it, and they're going to worry about, I've heard terrible things about LEDs or whatever. I think that.
Well, I
that
don't
it's-
like it myself, so
I
there
think
you
it's,
go.
it's important to pass this information
There's benefits and
along.
drawbacks.
Well, if transportation is a priority for this committee in trying to get people on foot and on bicycles, you don't want to turn off every light in the town.
Well, that's not what we're talking
No,
about, Julie.
no.
Well,
Sarah,
no,
Sarah,
but you
by the
really
way,
need
with
to be
regard to
careful.
bicycles, that's beyond the purview of this committee. We have a pathways committee that
I don't,
addresses that.
I've thought about that after you said, I don't think that we're necessarily only discussing what paths the pathway committee may look at. We can discuss all sorts of encouragements to get people onto bikes and things that the pathway committee wouldn't do, I don't think. I mean, the pathway committee looks specifically at pathways, does it not? I mean, that's all I've ever heard.
And the condition of what can they do to encourage people to walk and bicycle? And what is the condition of the existing infrastructure for that? What needs to be done to improve that infrastructure?
Well, maybe we should be
How do we need
working
to
with
raise
them
awareness
on
of
a
bicycles
kind
on
of
the
joint
road?
initiative with
Well,
them.
but again,
Pathways committee.
if we're talking about this insertion,
That won't be there, that's right.
that, again, I think it's important. We could say, here's what we've done, we've put a solar farm, we've hired a consultant.
I think all this
We've done,
information's good.
so those are real simple, quick
need to
bullet
know
points, but those are subservient to the bigger message, which is, hey, people, this is a town priority. The select
Like
board,
2 or 3 sentences.
the select board and the town administration are telling you this is a big priority, and that's why we're putting this in here. We don't normally do that. This is sending a powerful message
So,
that
may
this is
I-
what we're doing.
I would like to ask, since two of you, I'm not sure about you two, but two of you feel very strongly that the draft as it exists is too much. I would like you to prepare your own draft and submit it to the committee by email to look at,
Okay.
so that we
One or
have,
the other, or both, or what?
both of you,
You can collaborate if you want.
collaborate.
We do a collaborative Google Doc, and that way we can all weigh in.
Overlord.
Yeah, it's okay. They can see it. It's just getting the message out, right? If Google has it, it'll get the message out faster.
I'm okay with that, Pete.
So what we can do is put this one up in a Google Doc and
And then
share
just
it,
edit it.
and then you guys can edit it.
Sure.
I'm, my personality is such that this information will be important to me. I would want to know this.
Right.
And,
But
And
do
you're
you
saying
agree, do you
it's
agree,
not.
that what I would say, again, I think this is really important. First, is to what is the purpose what is the purpose?
well,
It
that is a
sounds
good
like
question.
what you think the purpose is to tell people what we've done.
It's what we've done, what we're working on.
Yeah.
So-
It's not, Anita, you're forgetting, we've agreed, I think, most of us, that this isn't about this committee.
That's right.
Right.
So.
It's much bigger.
Why,
What we, I
and
mean
the
the town,
town, why
I mean
would
the
the
town.
town, here Jeremy has a point, why would the town choose to tell everybody all the details of what the Energy Committee's done, and it wouldn't tell the
But
town
I
what the
don't-
Pathways Committee's done?
I don't see that as an energy commit, when I say we, yes,
In the town.
Right, so what I'm saying, I guess what I'm saying is,
what we, the town,
we could use a few of those bullet points to say, hey, and here's a heads up, see, we're already starting. It's really not about the details, it's about the
vision thing.
idea, it's the vision. The vision is, we're the first town in the state to sign on. We have a strong commitment to do this, including the town administration and select board who voted for this thing, and we're aware that the voters don't necessarily know that we've done this, and we want to make sure they do, because this is really the way that all our decisions are going to be funneled through this.
I think our way forward is to start working on something collaboratively. But we need to plug in and we need to lean into this because of the timing. And if we can, I think it's,
What's a reasonable period
No, you're
to
right,
do
because,
a
yeah.
back and
there's a
forth?
discussion about the cart and the horse here about whether we need to get all the okays before they know what they're okaying. So I think if we can say, this is what we'd like to present, and we have something that we can say, this, can we do this? They know what,
Right, and I think what we,
So we have to do
what we, I feel like the way we should word it is that it's their words. I mean, in other words, we're putting words into their mouths that they're comfortable with.
I would
Yes.
agree.
that's fine. I mean, that's what this says.
That this thing has to come, this is from
Camden
the
has done this, Camden
town.
has done that,
Yeah.
Camden is doing this, Camden will do this.
And this is why
You guys will
Camden
do
is,
this,
and
we'll
this
do
is
that.
why Camden is doing this, because we said we were going to.
It
Now,
fits,
let
because they
me
hired
ask,
this other consultant, that's not, that's
How,
external. to that.
how important is this, what we can do stuff at the end of it?
I don't know, I have to look over that. I haven't.
It is, it's the list, let's see.
I know, climate-wise landscaping.
Actions you can take, weatherize your home.
Yeah, I feel like those are, you could say, for more information,
I mean,
go to the town website where all these, there's plenty of links for things that you can do. That's all you want to
links
do.
on there.
For more information
there-
You
on,
only need one, you can only have one link and it has to be short. People don't
Camden.gov.
look at a piece of paper and write links down and type them in. They don't do that.
but I would say for more information on
Yeah.
how you can
Right.
contribute and save money or some.
Right.
some-
Go to
go
blah,
to the
blah,
site.
blah.
The site has multiple additional links.
You know, I think you have a good point, given that it's going out with the tax bill, that, you know, people are going to be thinking about money,
Sure.
what the town costs.
Sure, and then but that can be a page on the town website that says, here's efficiency
No,
main,
I-
here's what you get for heat pumps, here's what you get for, that could be totally
You need to
separate.
remember that there are citizens who are not using computers at home still,
Well, that's a point.
who go to the library if they want to use a computer, if they use a computer at all. So you are going to get homeowners who will be receiving this who do not have a computer at home, who do not even know how to use a computer. So.
You can give them a
we
phone
would refer
phone
them
number.
to a flyer that's at the library, I think.
So we're doing that, we'll do another flyer. You
Something-
could do a version of the web page that doesn't have web links, I suppose, right? Is that what you're thinking? Is-
Something at the library or the town office. Probably the
expanded-
library would be better.
At some point, you have to
Some-
abandon those
Rather
people.
than- Yeah.
But that's, the important thing is to see if we can catch the comet of the tax bills. If we can catch that comet before it flies by. That's really important.
And I think if,
And I think we've got that pretty much figured out now. I do have a question.
Though, do we have to do it all totally sequentially? In other words, I mean, not even get back to Jeremy or Audra until we have an agreed draft?
No, I think it would be a good idea.
gone for a week,
It would be
so-
good to just say to Audra, hey, Audra, here's what we feel is important. We want this to be we'll write it however you want us to. We'll do it. We'll do the work because you're all taxed. But ultimately, we want this to be something that you're like, yeah, this is what we,
Okay, so
what's the
let's-
message
I-
that you would
I really
like us to
think
get
that
out?
We need something to give her that is a pretty close approximation to what she should expect it to look like. So.
Yeah, and that's where,
step one.
that's where I'd say, let's
Okay.
keep it short, let's talk about, here's what we've committed ourselves to do, here's what's going to happen this
So,
year.
Related to the town looking through that lens, did the marijuana bill pass in town?
I didn't hear anything about that at town meeting.
You didn't? Because I came in I came in and I was trying to get my computer or something, and I think I missed what Deb Dodge said, but I'd like to know because
Has energy
I don't
ramifications.
remember seeing anything in that bill that related to energy. And that, I don't know whether that was our fault, whether that was the chair's fault, but there was a discussion.
Well,
When I presented it,
Yeah.
can I finish, please?
Yeah.
When I presented to the select board, I brought that up. When marijuana came before Audra, she brought that up to me. I felt that it was on their plate. I did not go to the hearing about it. But there were lots of mentions about lots of other things on that, on the actual document that we were voting on. Nothing about energy. And this is after we've signed the Global Covenant of Mayors. And I don't know whether we all know that it takes a lot of energy to grow marijuana indoors, or any plants.
yes, they did pass it.
But I did happen to wander in during the summer solstice celebration in Rockland. And if you, across from the ferry landing, there's the Granite Inn, and then you go in towards town on that side, the opposite side of the harbor, and there's this big old building that used to be a church that had antiques in the window, but it was always closed. You remember that building?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's now selling marijuana and growing marijuana in that old church building. And their doors were open at the summer solstice celebration on Saturday, and they're open for business, have been for 2 weeks. So that place is, the light in there for those plants is just, it's significant. And to be honest with you, I voted against the marijuana for that reason. They did not address energy. Not that.
Well,
I
and
don't
this
make
is,
any difference.
this is another reason to get this flyer in with their imprimatur, because as you saw at town meeting, that nothing came up unless, I went up and said, what's the climate impact of this? What's the climate impact of this? And I think that I know that Audra is an ally and feels strongly about this, but yet they have not yet gotten their department heads and planning board. Not everybody is up to speed on, we have to ask that question. For example, the whole redevelopment of the stormwater system under Route 1 that's going to be tearing up the DOT did a presentation here. At no time during that entire almost 2-hour hearing was there any discussion of how are you designing these culverts to take into account that the episodic rain events in the next 100 years are going to increase, so that anything that you size now, I watched it on the TV, but I did ask the question afterwards to Mark Radner and a bunch of other people, like, how come we didn't hear anything about climate change? So again, we're still dealing with this thing that is off the radar for most people. And what we have to do, as I think, honestly, as an energy committee, our biggest mandate going forward is that we have a climate crisis, and that everything we do needs to be seen through that lens. All projects in the town need to go through the idea of, like, what does this do? What is this, the likely impacts of the climate crisis changing our climate to the point where, we're talking about, Harbor Walk, that got shelved because we now know, all those plans didn't take into account sea level rise. There's all kinds of things like that the town communications, town meeting, select board meetings, everything that we do, we still haven't gotten that kind of, in other words, I can imagine in budget committee meetings where the budget committee says, okay, Parks and Recreation, where is your 5% reduction in fossil fuels coming from next year? You know, that's the kind of thing that we have to make sure that people understand, is that every single decision going forward must be viewed through the lens of the climate crisis. Yeah,
Did you know that?
I did not.
That's Pen Bay Pilot.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Yes, I thought on that marijuana thing that they were focusing on small facilities with the specific.
Said they
intent
approved the
of ruling
the smallest
out
facilities.
The big energy users, but perhaps I just thought that because I wished that, but that's how I.
So it says
read
Camden voters endorse new marijuana rules. So whatever those rules were, they were endorsed by the voters.
They said to allow the smallest, only the smallest
Only the
indoor and
smallest
outdoor
facility.
operations.
It's 2,000 square feet indoors. That's,
It's a pretty good size operation.
there are two sizes, 500 square feet and 2,000 square feet.
And we authorize the smallest.
2,000, it depends on the zone. They're all different zones, and you had to look at each zone and what they were,
Yeah.
what was in
Two
what zone.
smallest indoor and outdoors, what this, if
Yeah,
this is
well,
correct.
that
So that's
2,000 square
500 and
feet
2,000.
is small relative to what it could be.
Yeah, and, having been in a couple of these growing facilities myself, because as an energy auditor, I get sometimes called in to
Yeah.
see, because can be a significant part of the expense and the climate control and just, purifying air and so forth. I mean, these facilities are being built like passive houses. They are incredibly tight and well insulated. And then, the problem is that you got so much heat from the bulbs that you then need to cool it down because it can get too hot, from the bulbs themselves. So there's a balancing thing that's going on, but most that I'm seeing, they're driving them with heat pumps. So they're going with the most efficient way to heat and cool. And mostly it's about cooling.
Yeah, the bottom line is that the town did not include that consideration.
Right, and they don't in
That's
anything
an
yet.
excellent-
And that's where we as an energy committee can help them, and that's where we should show up to,
And probably each select board meeting, someone should
yeah,
just stand, one of us
stand
should
by
plan
and
to
just
go
say,
stand up and say,
what are you doing about, how does this affect global
non-agenda
climate?
items.
Right.
We just want to make sure that everything that's talked about tonight is looked through,
Yes.
first through the lens of the Global Covenant of Mayor and Climate
Hey, Bruce,
Crisis.
you ready to do that? You ready to
Go to all
hold
the select board meetings.
We can divvy it up.
You know what I'm saying? But I
One of
mean,
us.
and I mean, I think something like that, as silly as it seems, it could be powerful because it's just, we are not going to relent on this. This is
Right.
absolutely critical. This is
First-
our lives, this is the lives of our children, our grandchildren.
Okay, I think we've beaten this horse quite a bit, so. And we know what we're doing in the next month, if not weeks, is that we are going to each, I mean, I'd be happy to create the Google document and send it around,
Sounds good.
and you guys can have at it, and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay, before we move too far away from that, the concept of how do we get change in the way that people think about issues in the town, I mean, I was kind of open-ended, and I just wasn't sure how, maybe there's a time when we actually talk specifically about that with, I don't know, is it Jeremy and who? Audra? Was it Mark? Who
And
was it
Mark.
last?
Bob
Our
Falciani
rep
was
and-
here, the chair of the select
Falciani.
board, Bob Falciani, you're asking about him?
I mean, I think they do, I think that they,
Wait just a second.
Yeah, I don't, I'm sorry,
asking about?
I should know these things,
That's all
but
right.
the people that, not the full board, but just a group of people that we would need to talk with to convince that a paradigm needs to change a little bit, that's all.
yeah, I
Rather
think,
than
I think.
surprise them at meetings,
I
I'm a
don't think
little worried
that,
about.
no, I
doing
don't think that
too
you need to
much.
be surprised, because they're very, I mean.
They're aware.
They're aware, and they're
They're
just
definitely on our team. I'm
they're
not
on our
worried
team,
about-
and so it's just a question of
Just reminding.
reminding and,
Bob spent it, that was
Yeah.
what the point she was making. Bob spent an hour and a half here with
Yeah.
us last month,
Yes, I remember that.
discussing
So-
kind of just.
So we just have to
exactly
keep-
this
keep
sort of
reminding.
thing.
I was
Keep it top of
delighted
mind.
that Audra, I think Audra's been doing a great job
yeah.
advocating for the goals that we all hold dear. Working on that solar site and she worked really hard
Yeah.
to try to get that. And I believe she still is, they all are. But it did surprise me that nevertheless, that bill came through with nothing regarding energy. So I don't know
Yeah, it's
why
indicative.
that's true, and since we didn't show up at the public hearing, I guess.
Well, so that leads, so let's be more, let's divvy up.
Yeah, I think-
We just need to be more aware of what's coming and divvy up so that we're there, and we can be the voice that just says, hold on a second, how does this fit into Global Covenant of Mayors?
I think you're right, Pete. I think we could have a tremendous influence because remember, as you said, Anita, and this was poignant, the budget committee people, these are deeply committed people.
Yeah, these are people
And
that-
They just
so
don't know.
they're just, right,
not
they
their
just
fault.
don't know. And so if
our
whenever there's a
communication
public
fault.
hearing on something, we can, rally and make sure that one of us is able to get there. Maybe not for the whole meeting.
Yeah.
But even just to bring up the point saying, I just wanted to make sure that you all are taking, that you're remembering to take into account, how does this fit into our global climate of mayor's commitment to climate crisis reduction?
Which, after all, is why we advocated for it in the beginning, right? The whole reason why we advocated for this Global Council of Mayors is because now we have an umbrella by which we can continually say, remember, remember, remember.
All right, next on the agenda is, with regard to the energy info flyer, I think we covered that municipal financial assistance. We just have to wait on that and see if they come up with anything. Status updates of the solar array site. Basically, Jeremy said, working on it.
Well, Rich has been, there's a contract, I don't know that he's begun work yet, but it's on or about now, I think, that he's going to be starting that, I think was what.
So that's
Jeremy
Maine
said.
Solar Engineering, which is mentioned there, Sarah, on your agenda.
Yes,
Um,
I see.
So it's somewhere, the status of that is, what did he say? Solar array work? Okay, the status is, according to Jeremy, that we have a signed contract. We have signed, okay, it's signed. We have signed a contract with Maine Solar Engineering, who is, Rich Roughgarden is a consultant. Roughgarden is starting his assessment and feasibility study. We will be meeting with him soon. We continue, this is Jeremy speaking. We continue to aggressively review our options for a large solar farm, and will be reviewing building and land-mounted installation opportunities. We are also looking at other renewable energy opportunities. We will provide an update to the committee as soon as possible. So Rich is, Mr. Roughgarden is focusing on solar photovoltaic array opportunities
Yeah.
for the town of Camden, both inside the boundaries of Camden and beyond the boundaries of Camden.
And I would just like to make it known to Jeremy and Audra that we can provide support. We don't necessarily only just need to be informed, but that we could provide support in the way of, I'd be happy to put in some hours
Right.
in support in any way, shape, or form
I
that
think we
they
made it
can.
clear that we want
I
to see
think
these
that
move
was pretty
forward.
clear.
Okay, good.
So with regard to the Sagamore Farm site where our first solar array exists, the update on that is that it has not been removed from consideration with regard to expansion of the site and expansion of the array on that site. However, the town is waiting for the draft of a
Traffic study.
traffic, traffic permitting assessment from our traffic consultant. So I believe what that has to do with a road cut, maybe?
Yeah.
Or,
There's not a public road going up to it? Is
so,
that what-
so the town road called Sagamore Farm, or Sagamore Road, it's
It's not,
It's
it's
not a-
technically not a road,
technically not a town road, but it's an access,
right?
and it's town-owned, so I don't really know what the difference is, but,
Well, it's not suitable for any significant
well, just
traffic.
to,
It's
just to,
only to access the reservoir, and I think there's 2 residents on the road or something.
right. So
Permission.
just to clarify for any listeners, so there is a road to the former Sagamore Farm site that the town has use of, owns the land of, and, but that road does not directly access the location of the solar array. The solar array the town had installed has to be accessed through private land. To expand the array, apparently the town is looking into accessing the site through the town's land rather than through the private land. That gets complicated because there is a wetland between that road and the field. So the issue relates to the access somehow.
And the wetland that's there was actually created when Route 1 expansion occurred, so they blasted and pulled material out and created sort of quarries, if you will, to get stone for the roadbed, and then they delivered soil that they had taken out to replace with stone, and they delivered that up to make that plateau, that flat
So
plateau.
that thing that looks like a meadow where the solar array is
Right,
was put there by
created.
DOT.
So, the town took away on one side and added at the other to create that flat area that was likely to be more amenable to whatever sort of changes in use might be envisioned in the future. And whether or not the wetlands, it may be questioned whether the wetlands are really wetlands because they were created as they were created. They were not in existence before, potentially.
Oh,
I
this
don't
gets
know if anyone
complicated.
surveyed it,
Yeah.
I think that this,
but
it's important to me, and we've heard me say this before, but I'll say it again, is that I'm glad to hear that there is, we've got Rough Garden of Maine Solar Engineering working on this. I'm guardedly optimistic that we'll have a solution in the near future. But if we get this, if we get the report or whatever Maine Solar Engineering is putting together, and by the end of the year, we still don't have a solar site for the town, then the Energy Committee is going to have to start asking questions again. What's the delay? I think that we need to continue to say this is a big priority. We need to be moving quickly as we can. And I'm hoping that the Rough Garden survey or report is going to expedite that.
yeah, hopefully it will identify sites that are no good and sites that are, ranked.
Right.
And how good are they and how much, so the idea is, is there anything we can use in town? And if so, how cost-effective would it be? While
So-
it sounds like we're still pursuing other out-of-town.
And I think that out of town
substantial-
will be more interesting and potentially faster.
And likely, sort of more viable, just because they're likely to be larger. We don't have large parcels in town that I'm aware of. So the idea, that was the allure of the Union Chemical site. It was 14 acres. That's a
Didn't-
lot of solar.
Didn't Jeremy, either in this letter or somewhere else, I heard him, say that they actually have some other specific kind of, if not actual, anyway, sites, if not Superfund sites, something
Brownfields.
approximating it.
Some other-
Pretty dirty brownfield sites or something.
Yeah.
That they are looking at where there wouldn't be an issue of blocking other use of
Right. I think that's
agriculture or
important to them.
residential or other use of that land.
That's
right?
important to them.
Yeah, they're,
I took it they had some other
Yeah.
ones in mind. Did you have that impression?
he's quite, I believe he is quite tied in with that department that is charged with getting rid of lands that the state has in their possession. And so I think they see that there's a viable opportunity for brownfields that you can't use for many other purposes, and this would be such a win-win because
And I-
it could go in
yeah.
quickly, it doesn't.
And I also feel like we sort of have moved up on the priority list because of the fiasco of how the state basically did not do their.
Yeah, they didn't prioritize any of
Right.
the other non-monetary.
The stated
values
goals of the
land.
governor, basically to do whatever it takes to expand solar in Maine, the state department that was disposing of this, they just, I think, honestly, they just were like, this looks like too much work, we'll just sell it, because we don't want to get involved in this big deals. But I think that there's strongly worded letter from the select board to the state saying, what the heck, guys? What happened here? I think that they're going to be a lot less, they'll be much more reticent to just deny.
Blow this.
They won't blow us off next time, I hope. I'm hoping.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's, that this may have caught them somewhat unawares because it was fairly 11th hour.
It was.
Yeah.
It was 11th hour, but yeah, if it raises our stature and our place there, fantastic.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda was an update on the main Senate Bill 1711. I think it appears that it's not through Senate yet. I think it's, if I'm reading this correctly, the status is 75% progression. That bill relates to an act to promote solar energy projects and distributed generation resources in Maine. So that's, I believe, what we're looking for to pass in order for us to do the expansion of solar that we want to do in the town. And what we're trying to do is get all our ducks in a row here in Camden so that as soon as this bill passes, which we have confidence that it will, then we're ready to move forward. So I wanted to also mention that, use that bill here if you want to look at it. I wanted to mention that Mr. Roughgarden is also looking at rooftops, municipal rooftops. We have a number of big municipal buildings that have rooftops that are well
Yep.
positioned.
Thanks.
And when this committee first tried to proceed with our first solar array, the rooftops were eliminated due to the responses from our engineering firm, who said that they are not built to hold up that little bit of extra weight. So I have had a commitment from our Select Board Chair, Bob Falciani, that he feels that does not necessarily put these roofs out of contention, and that if need be, so Mr. Roughgarden will definitely be looking at the roofs that heretofore were not seriously considered as sites for the solar array. And the thought will be, what would it take to make it work? How do they need to be shored up? What costs are involved in shoring up those roofs? So we're definitely looking at those rooftops also as an option in the future, and I'm pleased about that. And I was also assured by Mr. Falciani that Mr. Roughgarden will be including school rooftops, even though they are not owned by the town. They are in the town, particularly the new middle school, and we, members of the Energy Committee, did reiterate our concerns and ardent interest that solar panels be, that we do everything we can
Last discussion last month.
to have solar panels put on the middle school roof when it's being built. So that's on Mr. Roughgarden's desk, shall we say, he's looking at all of those options as he proceeds with his research. So the select board they did a good thing by just hiring a consultant. They can be confident we'll be looking at everything from an expert's point of view, and so hopefully we'll have a good answer or a good combination of answers for the town. So that's the scoop with that. Do we want to discuss, let's see now, what do we have? Discussion of this year's work by Watershed Climate Change class. All right, is there anything else? I mean, this other item was related to something we just had a discussion about, and that was when new types of companies come to town, can we incorporate a review of their, can we, we as Camden, not this group, can we incorporate a review of their energy footprint, and can we as a town encourage new businesses to minimize their energy use and offset it where and however possible?
They will have to.
I was going to say, yeah. I
That's
think
the
it's-
whole point of the covenant of mayors. This will be mandated.
That is something that, as a committee, as you pointed out, we want to be sure that there's an awareness at the levels where these decisions are being made.
Correct.
Planning board, select board, town manager, town planner, that this awareness becomes more front and center.
That leads me to think about comprehensive plan. When does that get rewritten?
Last one was, I think, 2015.
So we've got,
So it's a 10-year.
right, so we've got 6 years. So that clearly in the next comprehensive plan, the covenant of mayors will figure largely.
Does anybody have anything else that they would like to discuss today?
I think we've done a lot of discussing, and I'm ready to call it a night.
All right. Anybody want to move to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
Okay. All in favor? And we're adjourning at 7:01. Nice timing.